Good evening, everyone. Mr. Clerk, the time is 7 o'clock on Tuesday, January 14th. I'd like to call this General Committee meeting to order and welcome everybody back for the start of the new year. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Humphreys. Any questions or comments on the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? Wonderful. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We have one community presentation this evening. I'd like to call Bruce Gorman up, to the Chief Executive Officer for the Aurora Public Library, to talk about their latest success story. Bruce, you know the drill. State your name.
My name is Bruce Gorman. I am the CEO of the Aurora Public Library. Happy to be here this evening. Most of the time when I join you, always I'm happy to be here, but it's related to something more formal. But I think it's important when we get the opportunity to share really good news and continue to tell the story of what libraries do. We want to do that, and we're happy to do that tonight with you. This is a video that we created, part of our strategic initiatives for 2019. When you watch it, it's 8 minutes. When you watch it, this is why I get into the library business, because there's no place that can impact so many people's lives so often, so many times, and this is a really awesome example of what we do every day. And this just really scratches the surface of what we do and what libraries everywhere do, but more so this is about Aurora Public Library. So it's 8 minutes long. Hopefully you sit back, relax, and enjoy a lovely presentation.
An ode to so I started to feel nervous now. Public libraries. An ode to Aurora Public Library and all public libraries in the world. Aurora Public Library, where people borrow books, read books, talk about books.
It's a place to read, it's a place to educate yourself, and it's a place to listen to good music.
I'm Barbara Dixon from the York Chamber Ensemble, and it was delightful to play today for the Culture Days on September 29th at the Aurora Public Library. And it's such a lovely acoustic to play here. It's a very warm environment with the lighting and a wonderful crowd to support the quartet this afternoon. So thank you very much for having us, and we really enjoyed it. We'd love to come back and play on another time.
Hey, it's Lucy Barbosa. I'm super excited to be back here at the Aurora Public Library. I love the place a lot. I love the atmosphere.
I've been lying to you lately about where my head is at. My thoughts are ganging up against me, pushing me forward and then pulling me back. They don't have to tell.
Can you come closer so I can talk to you? I feel so awkward. Jeremy, what are we doing here today?
So Art Not Shame grew out of a family-based initiative to raise awareness and funds for mental health. And when we launched as Art Not Shame, the dream was sort of to partner with community organizations to hold space for folks to be creative, to explore their voice, and to really come together in community.
My name is Brock Weir. I'm the editor of The Auroran, and I'm here tonight to talk with Judy Rebick about her new book, Heroes in My Head, which talks about her very personal journey through abuse and dissociative personality disorder.
I've always been pretty open as a person. I've always used personal stories in my journalism and in my writing, my book writing. So that wasn't so hard, but exposing what happened to me, of course, that was hard. And my father abused me starting at age 5. So it's pretty terrible. It's not hard to think of anything more terrible that can happen to a torturous person.
My name's Judy Rebick. I'm the author of Heroes in My Head, and I'm here at the Aurora Library to talk about my new book. I love talking in libraries because I think libraries are our most important community centers, and I'm really impressed by how libraries have adapted to changes in society much better than any other institution in the society, and focus a lot on providing resources for people who don't otherwise have resources.
My name is Sandra. I've been a volunteer with the Aurora Public Library for the last 12 years. My first assignment continues to be my patron. She's the shut-in who is unable to use one of her hands and is in a wheelchair. Her life is the books that I bring to her. She always wants to learn about places that she didn't have the opportunity to go to when she was able. And she needs to know something new every day. So if you want to talk about lifelong learning, she's my hero.
The library helped me to figure out which course or which modules I can take as a course, and grab a diploma, Canadian diploma, and that was my legal assistant diploma, and the library encouraged me.
Hi, I'm new to the community. I've been going to the Aurora Public Library for a little while now. I've always been coming to look at books and different things and bringing my daughter. But when I saw that APL was putting on this cooking class, and being a cook at home and being passionate about food, I thought I would come and look. Today we're making fresh ravioli. It's the Italian theme today. Being French Canadian, I'm hoping maybe I can bring something to the community later on.
I'm Everlasting. I am here at the Aurora Public Library for Drag Queen's Story Hour.
Can anybody make a roar sound? Roar! Yeah, can you do a really loud one now?
We brought our family to Drag Queen Story Hour, and we were here last year for it, and we love the program.
And we just think it's really important for our family to see that there are so many different types of families, and the library is a great place to come and share that together, reading some great books and meeting some new people and seeing the great diversity that we have in York Region.
Some of us as Assyrians, we feel in some moment that we are lost, like we lost our country, we lost our future, we lost many things. Some of us lost their families, and this is the hardest thing.
The Garden is a novel about survival, about family, about friendship under the most extraordinary and harsh circumstances.
The inspiration for the garden came from my newcomer students at St. Robert Catholic High School. In developing relationships with them, I learned of the hardships that many of them faced in their native countries. I found myself in awe of the strength, determination, and courage they had to overcome these obstacles.
When I started my library career, a lot of people were asking, what is the importance of libraries? What value do they bring to communities? With Google and the internet, people can find the information they want without libraries. And that's actually the opposite. Libraries are more important than they've ever been to communities, and we've evolved. Libraries have evolved. People need the expertise of librarians to help them navigate all of the massive amounts of information that are available. People need community spaces that help them live their lives. And that's what libraries do. It's a new place for us. This library, we've recreated it to create dynamic spaces in any way people want to use them. We're so excited that people have really embraced this new library, and they're coming here and using it in many different ways like they haven't before. We're part of the ethos of the community, and we're excited about that.
Her initiative, as you can see, it's really an awesome representation of what we do here at the Aurora Public Library, and happy to showcase it for you.
Libraries.
Maybe again.
An ode to.
That's wonderful, Bruce. Council, may I have a motion to receive the presentation? Moved by Councillor Gillen, Councillor Humphreys. Any questions for the presenter? It's been a while. Remember, you got to press the button. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Bruce, for showing this for us this evening. It's incredible. I love it. It's so uplifting and so on point of what a library is for our residents. And just thank you so much for putting that together. And hopefully we can get it out there, maybe post it on our own website here so that we can have our residents see this. It's just really something special. And actually, I'd like to put this on social media as well. I just think it's something from ourselves, because I think it's so wonderful that you relate right in there. You know, Google, everyone can go on social media. We need a community space, and this represents so much of that and more. And thank you so much for all you do and the staff do, and really appreciate seeing this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
Hi, thank you for coming. Aurora has a wonderful library. Thank you for just reminding us how wonderful it is, and to Ms. Mandelkorn as well for all of her work.
Councillor Gillen.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I just love all the diversity you've been able to capture within that video, and it just really shows how much Aurora has grown and come together, and how inclusive of a community we are, and I really love how you embrace that in that video. Do you intend on running that video in specific social media outlets, or sending it out, or what was some of the intention with that?
But to have it on your website would be great. It's a pretty big file, so it needs to kind of live somewhere. But we'd love to get it on your website, though.
Perhaps maybe if you had even almost a shortened one for social media release, that would be maybe something of interest if it was possible.
There you go.
But think about it anyway, because it is something that I think we should embrace and share and share with the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. It's a great testament to all the work that everybody does at the library, the staff, yourself, the board. We truly are blessed to have it, and so I appreciate you showing it to us, and I'm sure we'll get a link up to it to promote the library's website even more. Thanks, Bruce. Council will now move into delegations. We have 3 delegations this evening. Our first delegation is Klaus Warenberg. He's coming to speak on climate emergency action. Klaus, come on down. Klaus, please state your name and be reminded that you have 5 minutes for your delegation. A buzzer will go off when you have 1 minute left.
My hearing has gone from bad to worse.
Oh, so no, that's no good.
I don't understand what you're saying.
You have 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Before Christmas, you declared that Aurora is in a state of climate emergency. Thank you. But you chose not to do anything immediately, as any state of emergency commands. Relying on the production of a regional report and then on town staff report before acting is a well-tried method of postponing decision-making and not at all in tune with a state of emergency. As someone who has been involved in environmental advocacy and activism since before I arrived in Aurora about 50 years ago, you might understand why I'm disappointed with your lack of immediate action. I have a long list of possible immediate actions, and 2 of them are of my highest priority. I just understood that there was a fatality on the railroad tracks. I'm going to not talk about the second priority under the circumstances, but the first priority I can talk about. 2 of them, as my highest priority, are about involving young Aurorans and helping you in this state of emergency, and about getting the provincial transportation agency, Metrolinx, to begin removing barriers to pedestrians and cyclists in Aurora. I'll talk about the first priority. I believe that you would be well advised to re-establish an environmental advisory committee. Their mandate should include suggesting actions that can help reduce causes contributing to the climate emergency. To make such committee even more relevant, you could specify that only young persons or students can be members, and that the committee report to you via a chairperson who was chosen from within that membership, a young person, in other words. You could also formally ask the boards of education and Aurora's private schools to support such committee by allowing surveys of students to be conducted on school time, for instance. The formation of a Youth Environmental Advisory Committee would allow you to tap into the creativity and energy of Aurora's student population. It would also signal to the younger generation that you respect and value their opinions on a subject that will influence their future. I'm not talking about the second one. To summarize my remarks, the climate emergency which you have declared commands that immediate action will follow. The two possible immediate actions are related to the formation of a Youth Environment Advisory Committee and making a council resolution that Metrolinx reopen the Cousins Drive railroad crossing to non-motorized traffic. Cousins Drive in the middle of the town, between the town's people downtown and employment opportunities and major recreational opportunities on the other side, on the east side of the tracks, and we are allowing that to be closed. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you will take some immediate action. I have other things on the back burner, but that's too much for here.
Thank you, Klaus.
Anyway.
May I have a motion to receive the comments of the delegation? Councillor Gartner, Councillor Humphreys. Any questions? Councillor Gallo?
Klaus?
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 Klaus? Councillor Gallo has a question for you.
Would you be able to give us that document? Give us a copy of that document?
Are you able to provide a copy of your list? Okay.
Could you give us a copy of that document?
Oh, yeah. No, the clerk has a copy of this.
Oh, perfect.
And you will have the second option there as well, but okay. I don't want to get into it.
Thank you, Klaus. We'll make sure the clerk circulates the list.
I think there are other.
Klaus? Klaus? Councillor Gilliland has a question for you. I think, Councillor Gilliland, you're going to have to go to Klaus.
I just wanted to say thank you so much thank you for talking today and bringing all your concerns to council. I know you and I have spoken offline before already about this, and we are working towards some changes, but I do love hearing all the other suggestions that you bring, because definitely a fresh set of eyes and your opinion really counts, and I look forward to receiving that document and being circulated.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm hoping to work with you on your climate emergency motion.
And I look forward to working with you too, Klaus.
Klaus?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're going to get your steps in. I apologize. Councillor Gallo wasn't finished. Okay.
Okay.
Are we good? Councillor Gartner?
Klaus?
We're getting your steps in. Come on.
This is quite unusual.
You can't hear.
I know. So I remember you dragging me through a very wet forest many years ago trying to save it, and we did.
Yeah.
So thank you for all of
Which
you.
forest was it?
It was behind one of our industrial buildings.
Okay.
In the southeast part of Aurora.
Yeah, I'm bad at memory as well. My head.
I'm telling you, you did it.
I don't remember it, but if I took you there and you saved it, that is excellent.
Well, council saved it, but it's because of your work, and I thank you so much for remaining true to your vision and your dreams and helping us to do that as well.
The reason I don't come more often is I can't hear anything. So for me to listen in and watch here.
Well, thank you for coming tonight.
give you this rather quickly.
Thank you, Klaus. Council, all in favor of receiving the delegate? Wonderful. Our second delegation this evening, Sean McGuire with Aurora King Baseball. Mr. McGuire, if you can state your name, and just let you know you have 5 minutes. The bell will go off when you have one left.
Sean McGuire, president of Aurora King Baseball. Hello, Mr. Mayor and councilors. I'm here tonight to discuss the opportunity of bringing to the town of Aurora a dome baseball facility at the Hallmark lands. My background in baseball spans over 40 years internationally, nationally, provincially, and locally, both as a player and a coach. Most recently, the last 9 years with AKBA as a coach and board member. As we know, the Hallmark property is approximately 13 acres. Approximately 2 acres of the property would be needed to accommodate the proposed 60,000 square foot dome with a 3,000 square foot clubhouse attached. Similar domes have been built. Locally, we have the Aurora Sports Dome, which is 60,000 square feet with a 2,000 square foot clubhouse. Bradford has a similar sized dome, as does Markham. My extensive travel throughout the U.S., seeing various baseball facilities, domes are used quite frequently around the U.S. for baseball training. The baseball facility would offer a 60,000 square foot turfed field, 3 full-size retractable mesh-surrounded infields, 1 full-size open field, 10 batting cages with pitching machines and batting tees, and 3 pitching mounds. The baseball facility would be built with a clubhouse that would include office space and a boardroom. This would be the home of the AKBA head office. It would also include a weight room, bathrooms, and change rooms for both men and women. If built with a basement on the clubhouse, there would be ample storage for AKBA to meet all their storage needs. Aurora King Baseball Association would have full access to 2 indoor youth fields for permit during the summer season that would add a 2nd and 3rd field that can be utilized for youth baseball to play at the Hallmark lands. The facility will offer year-round conditioning and training to AKBA and other local teams and coaches. Aligned with AKBA, the facility would also house Team Ontario Astros, a college prep elite baseball program already involved with supporting AKBA coaches, teams, and individual players for the past 20 years. The ultimate goal to develop and retain AKBA players at the older age groups. Although this facility is geared toward the sport of baseball and softball with the Diggers, it can be extended into a multi-sport facility to accommodate other sports or sport teams. The facility would attract other baseball and softball associations, teams, and individuals looking to train at an elite level. This would allow for parents to shop and support local vendors while they wait for their children to be trained. The facility would staff a team of up to 15 full and part-time employees. As well, during the summer months, there would be a potential to run climate-controlled youth camps within the dome. In conclusion, I hope you see the potential of this proposal and how it aligns with Aurora Sports' vision.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Council, can I have a motion to receive the delegate? Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Gardner, any questions? Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. This throws a whole new wrench into the project, and I'm very interested in this proposal. So this is really catering more towards, I guess, competitive teams and practicing the winter year-round to be competitive with teams, say, in the warmer climate areas like in the U.S. So where does your team practice now indoors?
With Team Ontario Astros, they actually have a facility in Vaughan, and our AKBA teams are scattered all across York Region at various small facilities.
So I understand, I believe there's one in Whippy, and then the one in Vaughan. Is that the same one that recently had a flood a few years ago? Was that the same facility?
There is a facility that the Vaughan Vikings were using that had a major roof problem, and they have now renovated and are moving that into a movie theater or filming studio.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand that there's obviously a demand for it because geographically they're spread out very, very far, and if you were not going to Vaughan, you're going to Whippy. There could be a facility downtown Toronto or Mississauga area. Could you?
There is a facility that the Ontario Blue Jays operate. It's the Mississauga area that they run it out of.
Great. Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Thank you, Mr. McGuire, for delegating today. Because it's the first time Council has been presented with your suggestions, can you give us a brief outline of what the financial implications are in terms of what does the financial partnership look like?
This would be a fully funded. There would be nothing on the build of the dome for the town, so it would be fully funded by outside sources. As for the financial implications of the town, if we actually move forward and built the first field, the costs associated with the overall build will probably be cut in half from the $4 million budget that it was at most recently. Other than that, there's really no cost towards the town of Aurora.
Thank you. So you're saying that, but the town would still be responsible for grading, putting electrical, the drainage area, and all that. So you're saying that doing all that would still cut our $3.9 million budget in half?
Yes, sir.
Now, in our previous conversation, you said that there were going to be 3 practice fields. You said that there would be 2 fields that could be permitted to the AKBA. So can you reconcile between 2 and 3, and can you combine the 3 fields or the practice fields to have one bigger field to house adults or teenage teams, or?
To house adults or pretty much children over 14 years of age, the height restriction would come into play in a dome. As we all know, it slopes upwards. Our highest point is in the dead center of the dome. As for the 3 fields on the inside, which would be practice fields during the winter seasons, there would be 2 outfield fences that could be put into play to support the younger kids playing full-on games throughout the summer months.
Thank you. And this proposal that you have before us, does that have the full backing of the AKBA? Are you speaking on behalf of the AKBA and the private organization, or just the private organization?
I'm speaking on behalf of the private organization right now. Okay. I have spoke with my board. I abstained from a vote, and they all voted, and unanimously I have the support of AKBA.
Okay. And my last question would be increasing the capacity by adding the indoor facilities in the dome and the 1 outdoor baseball field, if it should happen in the Hallmark land. Would that satisfy the current and future needs of the AKBA?
I can definitely say that it would satisfy the current needs, but growth is a strange thing. As the Blue Jays go, so will our organization. We could grow to 15, 16, 1,700 kids in 10 years' time. So to say that it would meet the future needs, I'd be lying.
Okay, thank you. Actually, one last question. So is financing in place with this group, or is that still kind of pending other conditions?
There is financing that's there. I'm in the midst of dealing with a couple different people to see where I can get my best rates from.
Thank you.
Mayor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So financing is there. An outside group organization is going to come in and they're going to build this multi-million-dollar facility out of the goodness of their heart? Out of the goodness of their heart?
They'd be making money, obviously, back off of it. There would be a commercial end to it where they would actually earn an income coming from the facility.
Will they be leasing the land from the town?
That's something that on the next step, this being the first step, as it's pretty new coming to council after I was at the last council meeting. This was rather quick, where I had spoken with Councillor Kim and Mr. Downey about possibly bringing something forward. And with coming in so quickly, it's sort of, everything's falling into place real fast.
I think it's fair to say the details still need to be discussed.
Correct, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just about to say that. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you for coming. Would you be able to provide a report to council with the financial and design details? Yes. When could you do that?
Very shortly.
Excellent. Look forward to seeing it.
Okay.
Thank you. I have a question for you, Mr. McGuire.
Yes, sir.
Have you spoken with staff, and to what degree? Have you
Yes.
shared the details of the plan with them?
Yes, sir, I have. I met with Mr. Downey, Ms. McDougall, and Mr. Furman. I gave an hour-long presentation on the design of the dome itself, the entire layout of it. As far as I know, they were quite impressed with it. Mr. Downey's smiling, so I'm assuming he was impressed with it. Just a roundabout thing to bring it to his attention, to see if it was a viable option to move into place if the two fields get turned down by council because of the budget.
No, appreciate that. And notwithstanding Councillor Gardner's request, typically council, may refer this to staff to have further conversations and leave it in their hands to bring to us, but we'll see where the conversation goes later. I see Councillor Kim again for the second time.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. McGuire. Is there other examples in Canada where this organization has a partnership with the municipality, so something that we could, compare and refer to as well?
There is nothing that they have outside of wanting to invest in this said dome.
Okay.
It's just some people that have money.
Sure. Thank you.
Mayor Moraes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are they willing to pay for the other diamond as well?
No, because they wouldn't have any financial reward coming from that.
I just thought I would ask. I might as well throw that out there if they're willing to spend so much money, sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGuire. All in favor? Thank you. I'm sure you'll be sticking around for the conversation on Hallmark lands. Thank you. Council, our third delegation is Trevor and Krista Hall regarding 94 Connet Avenue. I'll ask you just to state your names and just let you know you have 5 minutes, and 1 minute left, a bell will go off.
Sure. Hello, Council. I'm Trevor Hall. This is my wife, Krista Hall.
Oh, I thought I had to say it. I'm Krista Hall. I wanted to talk in it.
We live at 94 Connaught Avenue. Our house falls within the stable neighborhood study area, which also means it's currently under the interim control bylaw. So we're here tonight to request exemption from the interim control bylaw in order for us to have the opportunity to go to committee of adjustment to request a couple minor variances. So we love the area, we love our house, and in order to have enough space to grow our family, we're proposing to put a second-story addition on our home, on our existing bungalow. So to construct the second story, there's multiple minor variances that are required, like I mentioned. We've completed the initial zoning compliance review through the building department as requested by the planning department, and we need a couple of minor variances. Our lot's undersized, so automatically if we had to do any changes, we would require a minor variance, as the current rear yard setback is currently in our kitchen right now, so we'd have to go regardless. Yeah, so we're proposing just to go up on the existing footprint and abide by all guidelines within the stable neighborhoods. And we know this process has been done before, and we would hope council would allow us to continue on this process so we can stay in the neighborhood. If anybody has any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. May I have a motion to receive? Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Gardner. Any questions for the delegates? Councillor Humphreys.
Quick one. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I know that the reason that you're here, and it's sort of a step that we put in place. You just mentioned, just to confirm, you're just placing a second story on the existing footprint. You're not going out.
Existing footprint, we have minor modifications, but it's basically just on the existing footprint.
Yeah, and I love Connaught Street. It's going to look sort of like the same kind of,
Yeah, it's beautiful. We love it too.
and your design is going to be in sort of in,
Yeah,
in terms it
we've
looks
read all the design guidelines and everything,
perfect.
and we want to keep it within the character of the neighborhood.
Right. So what we do here now is under new business, we may ask for that for you. So we have to go through the whole meeting, but you don't need to stay the whole time if you don't want to. But I'll try to bring that forward for you to go into the next step, because it sounds like it's a good build and you're just being held up due to our overcautious right now to make sure that things are protected in the area. So you would understand that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We understand that there's a pre-hearing too with OMB coming up at the end of January,
Yes.
where this could be a non-issue, but
You're right.
But right now, this is kind of the path forward. So we're here
Yeah,
today.
unfortunately, you wouldn't have this if that wasn't standing in the way right now. So it's a technicality for you guys, right? Thank you.
You are welcome to stay for the whole
Yeah,
meeting.
you sure, absolutely, yeah, of course.
But if not, I'm sure you can follow up with the clerk and they can advise you.
Awesome.
Oh, you can watch it online too. There you go.
Even better.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Council, I believe that's it for delegations. We have no items for the consent agenda, so we will move on to the advisory committee meeting minutes. May I have a motion to receive the minutes A1 to A3? Councillor Kim, Councillor Gallo. Any comments or questions with regards to the advisory committee meetings of the Heritage meeting, the Finance meeting, or the Mayor's Golf Classic? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Approved. We're now on to the regular agenda. Item R1. Believe we have a presentation to start off with by Mr. Steve Langlois, Principal Planner of Monteith Brown, for the Outdoor Field Development Strategy. You can state your name and try and make the presentation as brief as possible. 10 minutes.
Langlois with Monteith Brown Planning Consultants. It's a pleasure to be here. We did try to keep our slide deck a little bit shorter so we can get through in the time allotted. I'd be pleased to take any questions that you might have at the end of the presentation. Let's see. Perfect. So first, a bit about the strategy. It focuses on rectangular sport field needs, so soccer, football, lacrosse, rugby, field hockey, as well as ball diamonds. It contains input from sport users and key informants, an updated needs assessment that's based on the foundation that was laid in the town's Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and then ultimately provides recommendations and options for field improvements, repurposing, development, and partnerships. Now, why this strategy and why now? Certainly this has been a long-standing, it's been an item that's been before this committee as it relates to the Hallmark lands. This is, certainly we've tackled that particular item in this strategy, but it is a town-wide strategy looking at a variety of different needs and options, not just specific to that site. Other reasons for doing this work now, the sports fields are at or approaching capacity. This is something that we did confirm through the evidence that was derived through the work. Your population is growing as well, so we need to look ahead. Land is not easy to come by in your municipality. The town recently made a number of changes to help keep pace with some of these demands, but we know that sport field demands continue to rise. Changes are happening in terms of trends and participation. So again, that look ahead is very important so that we right size the supply to what the needs are within your sport community. As mentioned, future field development, you don't have many new community parks coming your way. Those have been the mainstay of sport field development in your community and others, so we need to get a little bit more creative. And those strategies, those creative strategies you'll find in the report. We look at optimizing field supply and ultimately working with non-municipal organizations, many of which might have land to meet some of those needs. So just a bit about the stakeholder consultation. That process included focus groups, surveys, interviews, as well as written submissions. All of your regular users of sport fields as well as existing and potential partners were contacted and given multiple opportunities to provide their input into the work. Several groups voiced a desire to improve and expand the supply to address their wait lists and to enhance their programs. They're also seeking artificial and lit fields, indoor facilities, locations with multiple fields, and barrier-free accessibility. That's very high level, but I think to each organization that would be the summary of what their needs are today and moving forward. I'll address rectangular fields first. Again, these are the ones used for soccer most prominently. Football, field lacrosse are probably the two other major sports played in this community. The town has access to 60 fields right now. We use equivalencies in this report, so without getting too deep into the numbers there, that accounts for fields that have lights and fields that have turf, because the capacity of those sorts of fields and diamonds is extended. You can use them during the later evening hours, and certainly with the turf fields, you can use them without rest for the most part, and earlier and later within the year. So we adjust that number a little bit. But about half of these rectangular sport fields are not owned by the town. They're under agreement, largely with the Magna, with the Stronach Group, the Magna fields. 19 of those fields, nearly 1/3 of your fields are on that property. We anticipate that property become unavailable to the town at some point in the future. Continues to be an open discussion, but 2022-23 is what we're hearing from staff. Last year, or 2018, sports fields were booked for 80% of the time. This is actually a very high number. It's impossible to reach 100 because you have rainouts, you have field rest requirements that, particularly for soccer fields, can't use them 7 days out of the week. What this indicates to us, it's a system being used to capacity. At the same time, we feel needs, supply and demand are generally in equilibrium right now for rectangular fields. Demand is growing. Because of the growth in your community, the trajectory of the sport, 20 additional fields would be required by 2031. Most of that, 13 of those fields would be required as the Magna offset. You have 19 there now. We're saying you only need about 13. Why the difference? Mostly because of the configuration of the fields and to be able to optimize the land that would be required for that. 7 of those fields, 7 of those 20 would be required to meet growth-related demands. In terms of ball diamonds, the town has access to 18 of diamonds right now, 23 unlit equivalents. Many of them have lights. All of these are on town lands. There's no useful school diamonds to speak of. Diamonds were booked 73% of the time, again, indicative of a system that's being used to capacity. Several groups have wait lists, which suggests to us, again, that there's really very little opportunity to use these unless you can get people at 4 p.m., 3:30, 4 p.m. during the weekday. That's a challenge in your community and in most. So that would be really the only opportunity. There's currently a deficit. So unlike ball diamonds where supply equals demand, there's currently a deficit of 2 ball diamonds right now, increasing to 5 diamonds by 2031. If all of these were built, like if you had the land, you need 12 hectares of land for the ball diamonds, 20 hectares of land for the soccer fields. You do not have 32 hectares of additional parkland in your community to address this. You're well positioned to address the short-term needs through the development of 2 adult-sized diamonds at the Hallmark lands. In terms of strategies, at a high level, there's four things we can do. We can improve and repurpose what you have. We can develop new or permit fields that are not currently permitted within your parks. We can expand partnerships with non-municipal landowners, and we can modify operational practices, policies, coordination. So the report looks at all of those. It also looks at all town parks and all school lands and did an evaluation of those properties. It looked at the key criteria that we would use to prioritize which ones should be pursued further. Things like, does it add capacity? Is it addressing a high priority need, leveraging a community partnership? So we had an evaluation lens that was applied throughout the report for that. The options that the report presents provide a starting point for further analysis. ultimately, if you're working with another partner, there'll be additional negotiation and additional discussions that would be required to do that. But we did reach out to the school boards in particular as being a major landowner, and certainly have their blessing to at least consider these opportunities. So in terms of the strategies themselves, I mentioned we need about 20 unlit equivalents of soccer fields, rectangular sports fields by 2031. We've identified the potential for up to 37 within the system. These are not all on your lands. Some of them will require improvements. Some of them are accessing school properties. So what this tells us is that there's opportunity out there within your community. Several options are presented to reduce conflicts through field conversions. In many cases, you have parks where there's one ball diamond and one soccer field, and they overlap. You can't program both spaces at one time. That can be problematic, so we looked at opportunities to expand or reconfigure a park. We looked at field improvements, opportunities to install artificial turf to enhance capacity. Normweller Park is one example there. We look at new field development. You will have some new neighborhood parks coming on stream, and there's an opportunity for some new smaller fields in those, as well as most notably expanding partnerships. And that's probably your most viable solution to addressing the loss of the Magna fields would be to redeploy your resources and scheduling to go out to particularly the public school board lands. You do not currently have a maintenance agreement with York Region District School Board the way that you do with the Catholic School Board. And they have several properties, including G.W. Williams, that has opportunity in the future. In terms of ball diamonds, we said you needed 5. We can come up with 4.5, so we're close. But we're not quite there. Ball diamonds require bigger plots of land for the most part, depending on the age that's using it. Netting is often required. The balls fly out in different directions. Most of this would be required and available through new field development. So Hallmark is really the most tangible opportunity to expand the diamond inventory, barring additional land acquisition. Most of our needs on the ball side are in the adult, older youth age group. One hardball diamond was recommended in your master plan that would serve older youth as well as adults. We don't currently have a site for that, so continuing to look for land opportunities there. And I'll just leave you with a summary of key recommendations around opportunities to expand these partnerships, exploring land acquisition, and developing full-size fields with supporting amenities. So with that, I used up every second. Sorry about that.
No, perfect.
I'd be pleased to take any questions that you do have.
Thank you, Mr. Langlois. Council, can I have somebody move the staff recommendation for R1? Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Gardner. Given that we have a 113-page report for us, and I'm confident that Ms. McDougall is able to handle any questions from staff, I will have you direct to staff. Should we need to, we'll call down Mr. Langlois. And no questions? Everything that was presented was in the 113-page report, Council. So you're free to ask questions, and I think Ms. McDougall can handle them. If not, then we'll call Mr. Langlois down. So there's no questions? On the report. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. First of all, congratulations on a thorough, very thorough report, particularly the analysis of our current assets and what we can do to better utilize them. I found that actually quite helpful. Some of my questions revolve around I guess the whole, report is primarily based on usage. What is the actual need in the community? And I want to get a good understanding where the data came from and how we either vetted the data in terms of the user groups and supply. I assume they supplied us with numbers. What criteria did we use to analyze those numbers to make sure they're as accurate as they possibly could be? Because the whole thing is based on those numbers in terms of how many we need and which particular venue do we need. So could you, Ms. McDougall, through you, Mr. Chair, go through that process for me?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll do my best, but seeing that the consultant obviously was firsthand meeting and consulting with the groups, if I haven't fully answered, I'll look back and he'll nod or not, and he might be
If
needed
need
to
be,
come
we'll
back
call
up.
him down, but I'll just leave it.
But for now, certainly through the consultation process, there were one-on-one interviews, there were certainly surveys. We have internally some of our own data based on utilization rates, how the fields are permitted and utilized on a regular basis. So the combination of actual use and then the feedback from each of the user groups on their current, today's numbers, the data based on their registrations, and how that would be impacted by the provincial organizations on the makeup of teams, the makeup of the future growth for the player development programs that they're within, and certainly looking at their comparative numbers as they were in conversation with the consultants. That data all combined with also probably looking at the standards and norms as it relates to the sports user groups across the province, and in particular what the norm is for growth in these sports, just to get a sense on where Aurora's numbers fall, the averages, to see if we're in line, to see if there's any anomalies. And generally speaking, where the numbers are growing, it's not just an arbitrary pick a percentage, this is based on your population. That's all based on the history and the knowledge that the consultants bring to the table, to know that they validate that from community to community as to the numbers that we are using in our community as it relates to our growth plan. So I'm hoping, if I've touched on it, I know that participation rates in baseball have slightly increased and seeming to be on a bit of an upward trajectory. The soccer, rectangular field sports tend to be more on a plateau at the current state, but we obviously have to anticipate that there's going to be changes as the sport interests change. So I know that the consultants work on that as it relates to plus minus pressures, determining on what kind of fields we would be needing in the future. So keep
Councillor
looking
Gallo,
back
would you
to,
like,
oh, I
would you
got a
like
thumbs
further
up.
details,
That's
or is that sufficient? If you like, I'll ask Councillor.
Yeah, I think I would, just in terms of
Mr. Langlois.
the simple question of, did we ask the user groups, please give me a number of your participants? They gave us a number of their participants, and that's what we have in the document. You've obviously adjusted some of them based on organizations that are outside of Aurora and perhaps use facilities outside of Aurora, but was that the extent of the data collection? We didn't verify any of it.
Mr. Langlois.
Through you, Mr. Chair. That was our starting point, was information that staff would have gathered over the past couple of years. So they did have participation data from a few years ago. We validated that. In speaking with the groups, we looked at their schedules. Online, we looked at their schedules. We looked at the number of teams they have. That helps it pass the smell test, so to speak. If the number seems inflated, we would be able to flag that. None of them did seem that way. You're right to point out that you're located in an area that attracts usage from across the region, and vice versa. I mean, you'd have many residents that play outside, many that play inside, but we did discount for organizations that serve more of a York region, multi-municipality sort of boundary. So we were able to do that way, and we looked at their utilization as well. In our work across the province, we have a sense of capacities and standards of play, and if any of those seem to be out of line, our practices would have flagged that.
Councillor Gallo.
Okay, I beg to differ, but I won't do it here. And I have an analysis that I did that I would suspect some of those numbers aren't accurate and would probably change. However, we'll let that lie. In terms of the needs analysis for the rectangular fields, on page in our agenda 38 of 113, 4.4 needs analysis. In our 2015 master plan update, we used the strategy of 1 rectangular sports field per 80 participants. And you've suggested or have changed that to 1 rectangular sports field for 85 participants or unlit equivalent. And you gave 3 points in terms of the explanation. I'll be honest, they're not that strong, to me at least, to make that change. And if we were to stick with the 2015 master plan update numbers, 1 to 80, and with 5,600 participants, we would require 70 unlit equivalent fields, which would leave us 4 short of our current state. Is that accurate? And I stand to be corrected.
Ms. McDougall, are you able to answer that? Mr. Langlois.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd have to get out my calculator, but that seems within the realm of possibility. So you're correct in that we had made a slight adjustment to the provision target that we used to project these needs forward. In 2015-16, it was 1 to 80. We modified that to 1 to 85 based on a deeper dive into the groups that are using the fields and their usage rates. In particular, we saw, I think the primary point that we base that on is a gradual shifting, not just today, but into the future, into adult play. Adults are not on the fields for 3 hours a week like a lot of our youth are. So you can fit a lot more adults onto one field over the course of a week than youth. Obviously, the dimensions are also a consideration as well, but we thought that merited a small change to that. If anyone has a calculator handy.
Well, I just did 5,600 divided.
5,600 divided by 80? I guess that would be, doing my quick math, you'd be right, 70.
I did the math.
I need to filibuster for a minute to get there. But we're there. Correct.
In addition to that, even if we kept it at 85, in 2 to 3 years' time, we'd be losing 13 fields, which would increase that number, I did the math as well, it would be 53 unlit equivalents, which would mean 1 field for every 106 participants in 2 to 3 years. We'd be short 17 rectangular fields in 2 to 3 years. And I know there's a whole strategy behind that, but to me, that's a huge red flag. I think I based it on 80, not 85, but it's going to be a big number. And it falls far short of our guidelines. But in today's numbers, I still feel that change from 80 to 85 is not a small change, because it results in 4 fields, which is significant. The other, just...
Councillor Kelly, is there a specific question or just comments you're making?
Well, maybe is that accurate? Have I interpreted that right, accurate in terms of the loss of the Magna fields would result in, at least using the 80 number, 53 fields, which would end up being short 17. I think you had said 20, but maybe it's the 80-85 difference.
Mr. Chair, there are currently 19 fields out at Magna. They are not used to their full capacity. The minor soccer programs them to a certain age group to maximize, to optimize their programming. If you were to look to replace those elsewhere, we think you can take the same amount of usage that's on those 19 fields and put it onto 13 fields. So that's where the 13 is coming from. So we're in agreement that as soon as those fields become unavailable to minor soccer, that you would need to replace those with 13 fields elsewhere. And the difference is, you were saying 17, that would be the difference in how we rationalize the provision target. So that would be up for your consideration.
Yeah, and I guess the point of that is in terms of current priorities, considering that in a short time frame, wouldn't that be bumped up the list?
Mr. Langwa?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Phasing would be vital to this, and continuing to work with your non-municipal partners, the Stronach Group, to make sure that you have ample advance notice to be able to plan for the loss of those fields and their replacement, and in particular the opportunity to work with other land providers such as the Public School Board. So this is not, this wouldn't be an easy transition if the doors were to be shut on those fields very quickly. So it does require some advanced thought in relation to phasing.
Thank you. I just thought because of that urgency that it may have been bumped up the list. The other question in terms of, I just wasn't sure. I know there's some data in terms of Aurora-based proportional representation on the user groups. Did that play any effect in the report in terms of participants? Did we weigh anything in terms of the particular user groups having more or less Aurora-based participants?
For you, Mr. Chair, the impact of the non-Aurora residents was probably felt most significantly, I believe, on baseball, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just going to pull that up. Yeah, we probably discounted more on the baseball side because of the regional, there's more of a regional nature with the user groups that are using your ball diamonds, in particular slow pitch, and the softball groups. So we based our analysis on the more of an Aurora-based needs assessment. So just very simply, if one group was using 80% of their time in Aurora, 20% say in Markham, we took that 80% and applied that to your need. We did not change that to 100%. We did not assume that they would alter their scheduling practices based on your availability or unavailability. So it's hard to say exactly what impact that had. We really just wanted to make sure that the existing usage patterns were respected moving forward.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. To me, at least, it's important that the user groups obviously have a significant participants that are from Aurora, obviously because Aurora taxpayers are paying for the facilities. The only one that stood out is probably an error or a typo is Oak Ridge's co-ed recreational slow pitch league. It says in the document that they're 100% Aurora-based in their survey, but which is 1,200, but they're actually 180. You had discounted it to 180.
Mr. Lett?
Through the chair, we used 180 in our analysis. If you're referring to the appendix, that would have been largely verbatim based on what the user groups had submitted, so that would be a good example of information that we had to then go ahead and vet and confirm before it was integrated into the study.
Thank you, and I'll just conclude by that to me, a little more analysis towards the data. I think closer attention should be placed on the data because it drives everything else. And that needs to be as accurate as it possibly can be. And I can certainly go offline and have some discussions with staff.
Ms. McDougall, would it be fair to say that as staff bring forward recommendations, some of that analysis will certainly accompany those reports?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
So as staff come forward with reports on the recommendations, would it be fair to say that analysis based on the data would accompany those reports in more detail on each specific case?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we could.
Thank you. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Langwa, for the thorough report. A couple of questions. When you, on one of the strategies is by repurposing fields, how did you strategize between one sport field usage and another. For instance, on page 38, I believe it was, change in the dimensions of a soccer field to for baseball or vice versa. Overall, all sports received through your recommendations extra capacity. Otherwise, the report would have been a failure. So, how did you prioritize between one sport and the next when it comes to repurposing?
I'm just going to see if Ms. McDougall would like to weigh in on this one first.
Oh, sorry, that's right. I
No?
saw you there
Mr.
first.
Langlois.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to turn it to Mr. Lang only because it's his analysis. I don't
That's
want
fine.
to speak for him.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Not all our options are mutually exclusive, so you might find some overlap between that. So I think that's important to note. You'll note it'll be in the notes on the specific options, but sometimes if there's an overlapping soccer and ball diamond, expanding one of those obviously means the other one would be lost. You can expand one or the other. We've presented both options in certain cases. In terms of identifying priority, it was often based on the best fit of those within the property, within the park property itself. We would look at utilization as well, and if one was stronger than the other, then that would be something that we would tease out. There are certainly one option, and we recognize it's not land that you own, it's the school board, but the Dr. G.W. Williams site has a number of acres of land that could potentially be used for sports fields. I say potentially, because that requires additional work with the school board. But you have a large block of land that really could be used for a number of different configurations and sports fields. So we recognize that additional work would be required to determine what would be the best fit on that property. So we view these as a starting point. You're not going to be able to achieve everything that's outlined in all of these options, but based on the fit, based on things like orientation, ideally you want ball diamonds to be almost north-south, for example. So those would have been some of the considerations.
Okay, thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. McDougall, the report recognized that we were short one adult hardball diamond, and the report doesn't address that particular need. And even if we were to go ahead with the Hallmark lands, a hardball diamond is not planned for that site. So I guess the recommendation is to just move forward for the next 10 years without an adult hardball diamond. Is that correct?
Ms. McDougall?
The hardball diamond, in order to fit, because of its nature and size, it's quite a large mass of land that we don't have. So therefore it would require land acquisition to accommodate a hardball. So alternatively would be repurposing some type of an existing property into a hardball, which means then you're sacrificing something else. So the ideal situation for a hardball accommodation would be additional land acquisition, of which Hallmark does not have the site to do. So it would have to be additional land beyond Hallmark.
Okay. Councillor Kim?
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for presenting this report. Just a comment, according to the report, if you can confirm, it says that even with the land that we have, we don't have enough land to accommodate our services without forming partnership. Is that something you can confirm?
I'll direct that to Ms. McDougall. I'm sure she can handle that one.
Through Mr. Chair, certainly from a rectangle field perspective, going forward, one of the probably the easiest, it's not easy, but I just mean the land exists within the school boards for rectangle field partnerships. So for moving forward to accommodate rectangle field replacements or additions or expansions, the partnership opportunity certainly is more viable with the rectangle options with the schools. Ball is very different. The schools are not interested in offering ball, nor do they even necessarily have the land mass to even consider us partnering with them to build the diamond on their property, even if they were interested. So ball is a different challenge because it requires that size of land mass, of which we have very little in our possession, aside from Hallmark.
Thank you. And that was one of the comments I was going to make, and how shocked I am and how little fields there are on the east side of Aurora, but yet they're all on the west side. And just noting that anytime a school is built, they're not interested in building ball diamonds. So we have to be really, really careful and strategic on how we have best use of our land and our space going forward. And I noticed, and I'm just curious about the report, it was separated like puzzle pieces. So you had the square field use on one side, and then you had the ball diamond use on the other side. But I kind of felt like there was no melding of the both to kind of give us the best use of that situation. And I didn't really feel like it put me in a direction to say, okay, so to better put us in a position moving forward for the future, it would be best to put this option here for a ball diamond and the soccer field there for the future. And I'm just wondering, was there a reason why you didn't do it that way? Or give us an option, at least?
Mr. Langlois.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Well, certainly the report does outline options, but you're correct in that there are certain properties, certain parks in particular, where you could decide on, make this a soccer-only park or make this a diamond baseball-only park. Really, it's a matter of working with staff and your local community and your stakeholders to determine the best direction forward on those particular properties. We know when it becomes very site-specific, the interests intensifies around what those park improvements could be. And being a strategy to move forward, we recognize that there would be some additional decision-making that would be required down the road. So, it's a starting point for some of those, and those are in the minority within the report itself, where you could make a decision to do one sport versus the other. A lot of it will also depend on phasing, and if you're able to do some of the lower hanging fruit early, and monitoring of sport trends might move your hand one way or the other on some of those undetermined properties.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. I guess I really wanted to kind of understand that. I feel like we're at a deficit right now, and we've already spoken to stakeholders and kind of know where our needs are, but I kind of feel like it's a piece of mahjong, and we're trying to piece it all together, and I don't think we've actually done that yet. We've got all the pieces, but we just haven't really put it together, and I was kind of hoping to see a little bit of that today. Another question was, why was Copeland Park not involved in your assessment?
Mr. Langlois, are you able to answer that?
Mr. Chair, I don't have a specific answer to that specific park. We would have examined all town properties. So
it was on your map.
Sorry, it was on the map. I think it was. If it's not identified as a specific option, what that means is that it's serving needs, and there's no opportunities to further optimize those properties. So they would continue to just serve their existing function moving forward.
Perhaps you can look back at your notes and confirm that, and then let staff know, and I'm sure it'll come up in future. Councillor Gilliland, anything further?
I just lost my notes I had up. I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll
Thank you.
find my notes.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you.
Mr. Langlois.
No, I know, I'm just waiting. Hi. We've given you an almost impossible task, and I can see that you've tried your best. I have a couple of comments on the ideas that you have for fields. You've chosen the Aurora Montessori School property, which is on Industrial, just south of St. John Side Road. Are you referring to the area that's in the valley? Because I think that would be floodplain.
Ms. McDougall, are you able to?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that doesn't change the ability to build a soccer field.
I really don't know what to say to that. I mean, one of the main problems we've had through the years is when our fields get flooded out and we don't have proper drainage. So it's quite a deep valley. I wouldn't think that would be an appropriate site for us to even try just because of the drainage issues and the usability issues.
I would just remind council that these are options before us, and each one individually will come for discussions.
I understand. When you were looking at the schools and indeed our town parks, if we put playing fields on those properties, does that greatly diminish the area that the children would have to play, not only at recess, but also for our own children in the town parks?
Ms. McDougall.
Through Mr. Chair, if I'm understanding your inquiry or your question, the timing in which depending on the location of where the proposal is for a field to be placed, obviously through various assessments of location, the best fit for that site, as well as the utilization traditionally, whatever that site might have. That all would play into a decision of priority for that being a preferred location to build something. Second to that is that the site and the permitting capability would, it's also public utilization. It's another way, another form of use of that space that is used by public. Just happens to be an organized format. So if I'm interpreting your question, it's still a public space. It just may be organized based on certain use throughout the weeks.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. With respect to the schools, there's a number of suggestions about building new playing fields on the school property, and I'm wondering whether it was taken into consideration that might diminish the required space that the school would use for their children to play. Not to play baseball or soccer, but just to play.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the construction of a soccer, for example, a rectangle pitch soccer field on a school property, during the school hours, the school can use that space however they wish. It doesn't limit their utilization to play out general games. In fact, they might be happy to have a formalized soccer field there built and maintained by the town. After hours, then it becomes utilized by an organized organization using it for the local community. So the space is welcome to be used by the schools during the day. Doesn't prevent them from it. And then in the evenings, it becomes a public community space.
Thank you. Being familiar with a lot of school playgrounds, some are large and some are small, and the ones that are small, and some of these that were mentioned, I believe, are small. If you take away just disorganized playing space that kids need at recess, I just wondered if that was taken into consideration, because putting a field in some of these schoolyards is greatly going to diminish the space that can just be used for ad hoc play.
Ms. McDougall?
Through Mr. Chair, the fact that a formed rectangle field is mapped out doesn't change the capability of some children to play the average tag game and school games that are on that field. So I don't see how it would prevent or limit the school creativity to take place on those fields.
Thank you. I'm not able to make the point that I want to make. But I would suggest that if there's a soccer field, that there'll be a number of kids on the soccer field, and there'll be a lot other kids that do not want to be on that soccer field, and that space is taken away from them for just disorganized play. So, but I can't seem to express that properly.
I think you did just that.
I was just going to say, Mr. Chair, if I could ask one more thing then. If it's during school hours, and yes, there's a formal soccer field there, the school might choose to use it in a formal setting and run a soccer game. But their recess then could be random, and they could let the kids just go play across that soccer field. Kids today on a field that doesn't have any poles or netting will play soccer in a wide open field without any formality of rectangle shape. The fact that there's a rectangle shape with some nets doesn't necessarily change how a child will use that space. There could be soccer going on, kicking going on, throwing going on, all at the same time during a recess.
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Councillor Gardner, anything further?
You haven't been a recess monitor, Ms. McDougall. With respect to the town parks, the answer was clear. Again, it's just a matter of, are we taking valuable space where kids can just run and do nothing and whatever? Because as soon as you get a field, there are going to be some kids that are going to go onto the field. Probably it won't accommodate many kids playing. So I'm just wondering if that was ever taken into consideration. The other thing is, were our business park lands looked at for this? Are there any spaces in our business lands that, especially around the 2C area bordering the 404, is there any space in those lands that possibly could be used after hours?
Ms. McDougall?
Through Mr. Chair, from the consultant's perspective and speaking with our planning department, there is a lot of commercial land and employment lands in those areas, similar to the industrial park lands. However, at this point, there are nothing available that would be an option for us to put a field or any rectangular baseball or otherwise.
Councilor Gardner.
Thank you. Could any of I was going to say, could any of these be played on parking lots, but I guess that's okay. And the other comment is the dome was mentioned in here, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but we've just renewed a 15-year lease with the dome. So that's, I don't know, I think we did that in 2018, end of 2017. So that takes that lease out to about 2034. You could check on that, but I think that's correct. So unfortunately, that would not be doable. And Ms. McDougall, through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. McDougall, I did email you a question very late, but I'm just wondering what is with artificial turf fields, and we have some experience now, are they a profitable venture?
Ms. McDougall.
Through Mr. Chair, and in response to your inquiry, as noted, I can't get into without the information or timing to be able to pull the data together for you, the financial numbers for you. However, typically recreational facilities are not necessarily profitable from a just general purpose that we are servicing a community need. From an artificial turf perspective, the benefit of going in that route, which I believe Mr. Langlois would help me with the numbers and stats on that, is that for every one rectangle field, it can be the number and the accommodations that can handle on an artificial turf increase. So from an investment perspective, you're getting more for your dollar than you would if you were building a natural turf. So I don't have the data numbers, but from an investment perspective, we're leaning towards, from a rectangle in particular, rectangle field to lean towards where we can and can afford to put artificial turf. Because not only is it have that longer season, it has the less shutdown times, and it can be multi-sport, which accommodates a variety of uses. So profitable, not typically.
Thank you. I was thinking of that in terms of the expense of the artificial turf and the fact that we have to replace it every 15 years or so. But I walk around the track at St. Max, and I've seen football, soccer, lacrosse, track. So yeah, it is good to have a multi-use field. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Gardner. Councilor Humphreys.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Thank you for the presentation. Not an easy feat for sure, and lots of information to digest. And but my one question after listening to much of the conversations for the Williams, GW Williams School, Ms. McDougall, I think there's a huge opportunity here, and I just wondered if you and staff have already started those discussions, because it looks like it should be available in 2023. I think that's where we're going to gain I believe a lot of potential on that. So just wondering if you had a head start on this yet, or.
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, staff have had a conversation with Title, unfortunately, and her title escapes me. However, we have met with the school board. In addition to that, the school board also met with the consultant.
Good.
to have the conversation. On top of that, their focus at the moment is to talk about the new school and what the interests might be in the new school. However, we've let it be known that we'd be very interested for conversations as it relates to the repurposing of the existing school and the lands in particular.
Right. Perfect. Thank you.
Mayor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, and it's a great report that's in front of us, I think, but I think it confirms what we all know, which is that as we grow, we need to become creative in how we provide new or enhance our existing fields and sports facilities, and through repurposing, through working with the school boards, as we heard, maybe possibly working with partners, from private partnerships. Those are the things that we're going to need to do to provide value for our residents and for the tax dollars that we spend to develop as we grow. So I'm looking forward to the upcoming reports from staff that are going to develop from these recommendations, and I'm sure that staff will bring enhanced reports and work with what they have through these recommendations and provide maybe some better numbers, because I agree with Councillor Gallo. Some of the numbers I do have some issues with them, and I think they're I don't agree with some of them, but I think that staff have heard us, and they'll work with that, and they'll provide us with some maybe better, stronger numbers as they provide their reports with these recommendations coming forward, and how we look at repurposing and providing that value for our residents and our sports communities.
Thank you, Mayor Maracas. Councillor Gardner for the second time.
Thank you. There is mention of non-traditional sports, non-traditional Canadian sports in this report. But there's no, it's just basically a one-liner, and there's no talk about perhaps providing field opportunities for them. And if you read Councillor Kim's notice of motion, he's talking about the statistics with respect to people from other countries coming to Canada, so, and inclusivity. So do we want to try and do something? Can we try and at least look into that and see what would be possible?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I know through the assessment of the master plan, or initial one, when it was determined or questioned what sports the community themselves provided input as to the nature of their interests, and that would be taken into account as it relates to our investment going forward. I know in our own recreational program delivery, we try to get very creative and certainly look at the community and the programming within the community that relates to a particular cultural interest and how to service that need without necessarily building a whole new asset at this stage. So it's giving that bit of a taste of what we can provide and offer. I think that the sports fields themselves, being the mass size that they are, do lend themselves to a variety of things that can be tried. And I think until that community growth continues to increase, the level of investment has to be monitored. But it would be something we would continue to evaluate as we go forward within the master planning of our fields.
Glad to hear that. There is a line in here about artificial fields not being appropriate for all sports, but that wasn't fleshed out. Would you be able to say what sports aren't?
Ms. McDougall? Mr. Langlois.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Certain sports, although I think your rugby association, rugby is one that, depending on the organization, they either like it or they don't, because there's a turf burn. That's part of the issue. Part of it is also soccer. Most soccer organizations do like it, but the ball rolls faster. More touches, so that plays well with the new standards of play that they have. But sometimes it's an organization-specific piece. Some of the more house league, more recreational sports don't care for it as well, because it costs them more money to rent the fields as well, and they don't necessarily have the cost structure and affordability to do so.
Thank you.
Anything further?
No, thanks.
Councillor Gallo for the second time.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify something that I may have said in error. I spoke about Aurora residents and I don't think that was accurate in terms of your analysis. We didn't look at participants being Aurora residents. We looked at, I guess, the participants using Aurora-based facilities, and then you did your discount based on that organization and how much of the organization utilizes Aurora-based facilities, not necessarily, and we didn't do any analysis on Aurora-based residents as participants. Is that correct?
Mr. Langlois.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would be an area that we do not have accurate information from. We would be reliant completely on the groups to provide that. We did ask it. However, we didn't find a consistent response to that. And you're really relying on the groups to actually, to first and foremost, know that number. So certainly what we did was look at that allocation, 3-year allocation policy, and how the scheduling is done, and made the determination based on that.
But would it influence the data or the report if we had accurate numbers in terms of Aurora residents that are participating? Does it influence in any way the field use? I thought it did, but I may be wrong, and maybe it shouldn't. I'm a little
Ms. McDougall?
On the borderline.
Through Mr. Chair, our allocation policy for sports field allocation and even an ice allocation, same type of thing, we do have a residency requirement within our policy. That it does assist when our staff do allocate the use of our spaces. When it comes to sports organizations that are deemed to be Aurora-based programs, they are residencies here. There is a percentage, of course, that will be non-resident, and there isn't that large sway. If they're majority of Aurora residents, they're deemed to us as an Aurora-based program. Therefore, we will treat them as such when we allocate space to them. So, yes, we manage that. We ask for that data and information when we receive their permit application. If they, like Aurora King Ball, for example, or the Aurora Youth Soccer Club, we have that information, but they are also identifying themselves as Aurora programming. So we would treat them within our allocation of space as an Aurora program.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. I still think we should be more rigorous in terms of getting the accuracy of those numbers and not, I don't know how, but not necessarily entirely getting it from the organizations. Again, I don't know how to do that. The other question related to the previous question I had in terms of the 80-85 ratio for rectangular fields. We also, I guess, changed the way we calculate baseball diamonds, and maybe you could speak to that because I wasn't very clear. It wasn't clear to me, at least, how we did that. We used to do it 1,000 one ball diamond per 1,000 residents, which seems high. If we're at 60,000, I don't think we're anywhere near that ratio. But we've reduced it to 90 participants. Maybe you can go through that, if you wouldn't mind.
Mr. Langlois?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The previous projection, which was through the master plan, did use, I think it was 1 to 1,000. It was a per capita base. So no matter what your age is, whether you were, a senior, a newborn, and wouldn't use ball diamonds, it was just a per capita. And the reason why that was done is because through the master plan and the consultation that was done, we just were not able to get the participation numbers at that time. The groups didn't provide it on time, and so we had to find another way to address that. And the target that was established at the time was based on other benchmark communities. So this time around, taking a deeper dive, we were able to use a similar approach, really the same sort of market-driven approach that we use for soccer, based on field capacities, and determine that a 1 to 90 target would be appropriate for your community. We use these evidence-based, market-driven standards to really reflect not only your usage here, because it depends a lot on the number of youth, the number of adults, the number of rep, number of house league, because it will vary from community to community based on your structure and how many and what their practice and game requirements are. But also we're able to then take that number and apply it against your future population, because it is an aging population as much as you're still attracting new families. So it becomes a little bit more accurate. But just to summarize, we had better data. As much as you may have questions with the data, we did have better data this time around in relation to participation.
Thank you. So our current, through you, Mr. Chair, our current, using that strategy, our current ratio is 98 participants per, current ratio is 1 diamond per 98 participants, and we chose to change that to 90 participants, and it says, in light of increased local participation and pressures from additional diamond time, particularly during the week, it is recommended the town adopt a target of 1 ball diamond per 90 participants. My point in that is, to me at least, it's not a particularly strong argument either way. And having said that, it does affect the number of fields, sometimes 2, 3, 4, up or down based on those numbers. I think we need to have a really close dive in terms of how we actually analyze our need for these facilities. We've changed them with some half-decent rationale, but I need more than one sentence telling me that we reduce it from 98 to 90, which equals an additional 4 baseball diamonds, or which equals a reduction or an addition of 5 or 6 rectangular fields. It changes drastically when you change those numbers, and I think we need to really have those accurate. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Geller. Just a quick comment. Since my time on council, we've talked many times about adding capacity, acquiring land, leveraging community partnerships, identifying and addressing needs. This conversation is not new, so I was very pleased to see within the report a variety of options and ways to best utilize the different fields. I think there are still more questions that come out of the report for us to look into, as Councillor Gallo and others have indicated, but I think at least it gives us a good starting point. I think we've been looking for some more specifics and some more thoughts on how best to proceed, and I think this gives us a good foundation upon which to build on and address some of those issues, because we all know we've talked about strategies many times, but I think action's needed. So appreciate all the work that Monteith Brown did on the report, and yourself as well, Mr. McDougall, and your staff. Thank you very much. Council, all in favor of the motion before us? Opposed? Yes? Councillor Gallo?
What are the next steps? I mean, we're endorsing
in principle,
and subject to budgetary implications. What are the next steps in this?
Ms. McDougall, would you like to expand upon, if council approves this, what would be the next steps?
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly hearing the additional queries that council would like us to evaluate, certainly the additional data. The staff will certainly attempt to and work with the provincial sports organizations to maybe additionally verify some of these numbers for you and bring that back. As it relates to next steps, with council's endorsement in principle of this proposal, we now understand a better direction of how we might proceed in replacing Magna based on the recommendations within this proposal. As an example, we could venture down additional conversations with the school boards to try to solidify some additional partnerships and start phasing those in. Those would obviously come back to council with each one of those proposals to you. As it relates to ball diamonds, obviously next on the agenda will help give us some guidance in the next step as it relates to ball. Wherever land acquisition is an opportunity, we will certainly speak with our planning department and talk about opportunities as it relates to how we might use that in parkland dedication or in land development for recreational amenities. So a report back to council, likely first and foremost, depending on how tonight's report goes for Hallmark and the ball diamonds as it relates to that. I foresee a subsequent report to council as it relates to future considerations for the rectangle sports fields and the data that we'll be looking for to justify some of that.
Okay.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Council, I'm going to ask that we move R3 forward. We have another presentation and consultant in the audience with regards to the Stream Management Master Plan and Flood Relief Study, and I'd like to do that before Council takes its break. All in favor? Perfect. Mr. Amos, if I can ask you to come forward. Please state your name, your role, and let you know that there'll be a buzzer going a minute before the presentation is supposed to end.
I'm a principal engineer at Aquifer Beach Limited. We're a specialty engineering firm who focuses on stream protection, watercourse restoration, as well as floodplain improvements.
Perfect.
The Stream Management Master Plan and Tannery Creek Flood Study was undertaken, and it provides site-specific recommendations to address both flooding as well as erosion risks within the town of Aurora. The recommendations are based on a quantitative prioritization plan, which accounts for the risks associated with each specific area, whether it be erosion or flooding. The study was undertaken consistent with the MECP Master Planning Approach number 2, which is a very powerful tool, which effectively means that upon the approval of this report, that any proposed projects coming out of it can effectively go straight to detailed design and then construction. The study area that was covered throughout the project extends throughout the town-wide boundaries with a focus on 2 primary subwatersheds. Tannery Creek, which extends or is contained largely from Bathurst Street over to Yonge Street, and then the East Holland River subwatershed, which then goes from east of Yonge over to Leslie. In total, the town of Aurora maintains over 80 kilometers of rivers, creeks, tributaries, and drainage features, all of which provide a very valuable natural heritage element to the town, supporting aquatic and terrestrial habitats, providing significant vegetation and recreational opportunities that are integrated into the corridors. But also, these 80 kilometers of stream segments also provide direct drainage for all of the local neighborhoods. So if you can imagine all of the overland drainage that drops on our rooftops, our parking lots, and our roadways, all inevitably end up in one of these watercourses that then collectively are conveyed south of St. John's Side Road and inevitably into Lake Simcoe. Some of the existing conditions that were observed throughout our assessments in which the water courses were walked by our senior staff. We wanted to provide a little bit of an overview. So we see in a collection of some photos here. So photo number A, for example, or letter A, illustrates an oversteepened water course bank in which the private property, which you can see in the background, was likely infilled when the water course would have been channelized in order to increase that developable land in behind the property. That water course is actively eroding and it's oversteepened, and it, without mitigation, may create risks to not only loss of private property, but eventually to that residential structure. Photo B, for example, that's illustrating deteriorated gabion baskets. Gabion baskets line a significant portion of the Tannery Creek watershed, providing an erosion control measure. However, they have a lifespan. Gabion baskets were largely applied to these water courses back in the 1970s and 1980s, and the wire mesh that encapsulates the gabion stone has rotted out throughout a large portion of those gabion baskets. Photo C illustrates the proximity of a building adjacent to the Tannery Creek channel. That would have been developed before existing Lake Simcoe development criteria, and that building is at significant impacts to not only the regulatory flood, but also frequent floods. Other photos illustrate large woody debris jams which require maintenance, interim weir and flood mitigation structures, direct storm sewer outfalls. Photo G illustrates a private driveway crossing in which a much wider water course is funneled through that small culvert. And photo H just illustrates what water course up within the headwaters looks like, at which local residents would have created their own bridge structure. As part of the erosion inventory, over 210 sites were identified throughout both the Tannery Creek and East Holland River watershed. Of those 210 sites, 33 were identified as priority erosion sites, of which 27 are located within Tannery Creek and 6 within the East Holland River. Of those 33 or high-risk erosion sites, the top 10 were effectively grouped and prioritized, as you see within this 10 erosion mitigation projects. So these are the top 10 based upon the level and severity of risk with regards to erosion. That risk may be to private property, to municipal infrastructure, or to public safety. The second slide here illustrates the 10 projects that were just mentioned, and then also provides a description as to what is specifically at risk, how those risks can be addressed, and then what the cost estimates, the engineering cost estimates are to address each one of those project sites. Also, as part of this study, these projects have been given a planning horizon, which is detailed within your council report. The 10th project that you see at the bottom of your screen, that is singled out as a reach scale restoration project. So that would require over 1 kilometer of watercourse restoration, a significant amount of work, which would involve not only public property but also private properties. And because of that, additional environmental assessment studies in the form of an individual assessment was recommended. From the flooding perspective, the study area focused specifically on Tannery Creek, as limited flood risks exist within the East Holland River. The regulatory flood is illustrated or overlain on top of the Tannery Creek planform as you see it in this map, of which the flood risk areas were then grouped into 10 different flood risk areas. Like I said, this is the regulatory flooding event. In addition to defining what that regulatory flooding extents may be, we also looked at the incremental flooding extents as well. Each of the flood implementation projects were then ranked. The way that the flood mitigation projects were ranked was each project was identified based upon the number of buildings and as well as the type of building within that specific floodplain area. And then that was weighted based upon the frequency of those buildings in which they're flooded. So buildings that would be flooded at the 2-year flood would be weighted of a higher risk than buildings which are only flooded at the 100 or regulatory flood. So in addition to the erosion projects, 10 specific flood projects were identified based upon the flood hazard assessment. Now when those two maps are overlaying one on top of each other, it was uncanny how consistent both erosion and flooding areas overlapped. So what this enabled us to do is come up with an integrated implementation plan, at which point we looked at the priority of the erosion and flooding projects, and then from a logistics standpoint, we've made recommendations to address erosion and flooding projects coupled together. What this will do is this will ensure that when a flood project is undertaken, for example, replacement of an undersized road crossing, that the upstream and downstream channel will be addressed should there be erosion hazards as well. This will inevitably save the town money from a contractual standpoint. Contractors will be required to undertake less mobilization fees and so forth. The 2 to 10 year planning horizon was identified as 6 priority projects, of which 1 project is actively being undertaken and addressed through private development. and the remaining 5 have been recommended for the town to be undertaking over the next 10 years. The total cost estimate for these 5 projects is $5.3 million at an average cost to the town of $530,000 per year. Similarly, projects were then grouped at a 10 to 20 year horizon and a 20 to 30 year horizon. The last grouping of projects, as you see, those are the projects which are all contained within that extended Tannery Creek section that is over 1 kilometer of water course in length and extends from Wellington down to the Yonge Street crossing just north of Batson. In summary, so the integrated planning horizon framework for both the erosion and flood mitigation project is as follows. 5 projects to be addressed over the next 10 years at an estimated cost of $5.3 million. Another 5 projects at $7 million, and 6 projects thereafter at $28.7 million. And that's all my time allows. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amos. Council, can I have someone put the staff recommendation for R3 on the floor? Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Gartner. Mr. Amos, if you wouldn't mind staying there, I'm assuming that Ms. Mahale may not be answering all questions from staff on this particular issue. So I will direct your questions to either staff or Mr. Amos. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Excellent plan. You obviously know what you're doing. Now, with respect to the floodplain, I know that you're using, or we were using, Hurricane Hazel standards. That's from 1954. But the Conservation Authority has updated the floodplain map. Is that what you're using?
Mr. Amos?
Or
we started with the Conservation Authority mapping as the base model. So we've worked with the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority as a partner throughout the course of this study. We then updated their model accordingly, looking at to ensure that both the hydrology, the flood flows are accurate, and then also updated their model further with additional topographic information through surveying as well as additional contour information.
Councilor Gardner.
Thank you. You said with respect to flood management, one project is being actively undertaken. Which one would that be? The development on Tyler?
Development south or upstream on Tyler Street, 52 Tyler Street, I believe.
I don't know if, okay, are we speaking to the report and the?
Yep.
Yep. Ms. Mahale, I think, wants to say something.
Ms. Mahale?
For you, Mr. Chair, yes, it's 45 Tyler Street that is being undertaken by a private developer. And they have the recommendation of the study, and they are trying to do as much as possible, given the fact that the site has some contamination, and they will have to work together with the Ministry of Environment to see how they can address these recommendations, but they will do it.
Ms. Councilor Gardner.
Group, and they have a lot of experience with contaminated properties. But as far as I know, through you, Mr. Chair, to our Director of Planning, we haven't heard anything about that property. It lies with the Ministry of the Environment, but Council hasn't heard anything back. So are you saying that they're still going ahead to do the remediation?
Mr. Waters?
Yes, they are actively studying the remediation of the property. As Ms. Mahale said, there is a soil contamination issue.
Yes.
That needs to be addressed, and it has implications regarding the stream in terms of what can and can't be done. They'll be required to rehabilitate a portion of the stream that runs through their property, but not the entire stream corridor.
Councilor Gardner.
Thank you. I guess my comment is I assume that they're confident they're going to get planning approvals from the ministry. Because I don't believe they have them yet.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that is correct. They have submitted a report to us for review, and also the ministry. The ministry is waiting for our comments before they actively begin to review it and make a recommendation.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Gardner?
That's all for now, thanks.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I guess I wanted to ask, I didn't see this actual slideshow until now, and I noticed that the Wellington Street location, and I'm assuming that's just down the hill where we just had a recent flood over the weekend. Is that correct, where that flood was? Is that the location on Wellington Street West that was in the slideshow?
Ms. Mahale?
Through you, Mr. Chair, what slideshow we are referring to?
The presentation.
Yeah, if you can just put the slide up for the 10 to 20 year.
The question is, you know, the recent flooding that happened over the weekend, is that the same site that was in the proposed 10 to 20 year horizon plan?
That's correct.
And Wellington Street West Channel restoration, right? This is what we are referring to. Yes, that's correct.
Councillor Gilliland, just a second.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. So I guess my question is, given the fact that this is not the first time that Wellington is flooded, and we are having increasing flooding with the climate change that's happening and occurring, having that in a 10 to 20 year bucket, would that be something that we should revisit and prioritize more in the 2 to 10 year bucket?
Ms. Mahale?
Yes, we can revisit this based on the more recent data and flood data that we have, flooding data that we have. Historically, we do not have flooding data in Aurora, but given the fact that these design storms and frequent storms are happening more and more, we have now this data, and we can revisit some of these projects and advance them within the 2 to 10 year horizon.
Certainly, we have lots of data from the weekend. Councillor Gilliland?
I guess, and my other question is, are we addressing these quick enough? And I know that's a bit of a loaded question, and I had wanted to speak with you earlier about that. And if the answer is no, we could probably do this quicker. I just would kind of like to know, what can we do better to kind of help prioritize these things and move it forward? Is it, once we get some granting, we can move some of the prioritized 10 to 20 buckets up to the 2 to 10? How are we going to position ourselves to be able to afford this?
Ms. Mahale?
For you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we are going to apply to all the grants possible. Actually, we have an application now. We are finalizing it. It has to be submitted by January 22nd. To the green infrastructure stream, and we are applying for the grant to pay for the construction of the Devlin Place erosion and flooding project, part of this master plan. And we are going to continue to apply to all the grants that are out there, and definitely we can advance projects within the horizon of 2 to 10 years, provided council will approve them part of the capital plan.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you, and to you, Mr. Chair. And just noting about some of the land that's maybe within the region, and working and partnering with them. Have you already had discussions with them with some of the properties that have been identified on the 2 to 10 year horizon?
Ms. Mahale?
Once this plan is master plan is approved in principle, we are going to approach the region and discuss cost sharing with this project. The region is aware of the issues there, and they were always a good partner with the town, and I expect that they will be together with us at the table and cost share the project.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. Well, I really hope that we can speed things up as much as possible, and I know that you guys are working as hard as you can and prioritizing as much as you think you can. Just hopefully we can continue to update and prioritize as we see fit, and hopefully we can present something to the capital budget and and maybe allocate some more funds where it's needed, because we need to really pay attention to this and be very careful for the safety of the community, our water, the resident, everything that encompasses living in a healthy, safe place. So thank you for this report, and thank you for all your hard work.
Councillor Gardner, since it's your second time, I'm going to go to Councillor Kim and then Councillor Gallo for the first time. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Mahale, when I was reading this report and reviewing the presentation, I was thinking this is going to cost quite a bit of money to have these remediation steps in place. And then I was reminded of our 10-year capital investment plan. Page 10 of the report indicates that all of the projects are incorporated in the capital plan, but then on page 9 it seems to indicate that portions of the project are incorporated into the capital plan. So can you just clarify? Maybe I'm misinterpreting.
Ms. Mayo?
All the projects within the 2 to 10 year horizon have been incorporated in a 10-year capital plan, design and construction, with the exception of 45 Tyler, which is going to be delivered by a private developer.
Councillor Kim?
Here, we all know our stormwater ponds, are instrumental in part of our stream management and our drainage projects. So can you, and I didn't see any of the dredging of stormwater ponds in any part of the project plan. So can you confirm where our stormwater ponds fit into this?
Ms. Mayo?
Through you, Mr. Chair, stormwater management ponds, the one that are man-made, are not part of this stream management master plan and flood remediation study. There is a project, a separate project, a partnership between the Operations Division and Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority to look at the ponds, maintenance of the ponds, sediment removal from the ponds, maintenance of any structure adjacent and to the stormwater management ponds. But the stormwater management ponds are not part of this master plan.
Councillor Gallo.
Just a quick question. The funding, at least our portion of the funding, would come from town's stormwater services reserve, and I'm just wondering if we have a balance to that account.
Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the balance at the end of 2019 was about $3.5 million. And is expected to be going down to just over $1 million by the end of this year with the work that's planned in the capital budget for 2020.
And then every subsequent year, based on our 10-year capital, we'd be refunding that account based on the projects that are coming online.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are planning contributions to the reserve through the multi-year budget over the next three years, $1.6 million this year, $1.8 million next year, and $2 million in 2022.
And would that change subject to any granting that we may get?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we would take a look at any granting that we would receive, but we would also want to take a look at this plan on the longer term. Now that we have this plan here, we can take a look at the whole 30-year time period and make sure that the reserve is adequately funded over that longer period of time to pay for the projects that need to be managed.
Thank you.
Councillor Gardner for the second time.
Thank you. Following on Councillor Gilliland's comment, I'm not sure what's going to happen with climate change, but putting some of these projects out into the 20 to 30 year range, maybe I could ask you, it seems a bit precarious to me. Do you have any comments on that?
Mr. Amos.
Most certainly a lot can go on over the next 20, 30 years, as well as a lot can change within the water courses. They're certainly quite dynamic. Any opportunity that the town may have in terms of advancing some of the longer term horizon into a shorter term would certainly help to reduce the existing risks. The way that we had bucketed these recommendations was through consultation with Ms. Mahale's group to try to provide feasible recommendations that would be within the confines and the constraints of the town's budgets.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. It's always about the money.
Yeah.
There is a mention here on page 8 of cost of land acquisition not being included. Could you give us an example of what that might mean?
Ms. Mahale?
I'm thinking at when a creek rehabilitation is being done and the creek banks are being eroded, sometimes we need to go and acquire some property from the private owners, from the backyards, to be able to restore the creek banks accordingly. So either through easements or even acquiring private property from landowners, from private owners. That's one good example of what means.
Through you, Mr. Chair, would that be the most common example, or the? Yes. Through you again, Mr. Chair. What hasn't been mentioned is the terrible flooding that we had on Wellington and at Wellington and Industrial Parkway South about 3 or 4 years ago, where there was a car floating and fire had to come and take care of that. So it's not, I assume it's not part of Tannery Creek.
Ms. Mahale?
Sorry. No, it's not part of that. It's one of the tributaries of the Tannery Creek, or it's East Holland River. I think it's East Holland River. I'll have to confirm on the map.
It was, well, you can imagine, it was quite an issue, and I'm assuming could be quite a problem in the future.
If you could follow up, that would be great, Ms. Mahale. Anything further, Councillor Carter?
No, thank you.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. In light of the conversation we had about Wellington Street West and how it probably should belong in the 2 to 10 year plan, I was wondering if it would be appropriate to make an amendment to the recommendation to include the Wellington Street West location in a report to fit in that 2 to 10 year plan. Because right now it says to be endorsed in principle the way as is, and I believe that, I would hope that my council partners would agree that the Wellington Street West should fit in that bucket, and it would be appropriate to report back with the financial implications of that, or if it can be restructured to where maybe a project's put into the other bucket. I'm not certain, but I would leave that in your capable hands to come back to kind of let us know what the best approach would be.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Gardner, would you just rephrase you restate your amendment, please?
To include Wellington Street West in the 2 to 10 year plan, and to report back with the financial implications of that.
Everybody have that? I'm looking around. Does everybody understand the amendment? Speakers to the amendment? Seeing none? You want to wait until staff put it up on the screen? Sure. Sure, I'll play the Jeopardy theme. Do, 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 do. Ms. Mahale?
To you, Mr. Chair, I would like a clarification. It's possible to have this part of the future capital plan, 10-year capital plan, in January 2021?
Councillor Gilliland's asking to sort of expedite the project and move it up on the timeline. That's the amendment, to make a change, to move it from the 10 to 20 year horizon to the 2 to 10 year horizon.
Okay, and that will be done, and I will report to the next capital plan discussion. This will be included in
Yes,
the
then
2
it
to
will
10
be
year.
referred to the budget.
Thank you.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then while we're at it, Mitchell Park has severe flooding, including going right up into the neighbors' backyards. Soccer's canceled, and their basements have been ruined time and time again for years, and this is on for 20 to 30 years. So I just think that we should be able to add that one on as well, to up it if we can, because I understand Wellington Street, that's happened forever, and cars have problems going through, but these ones are damaging to homes, and I think the neighbors here or there that we're doing this is going to be one of those little pop-up.
Certainly.
So can
You
we
can
add
add
that
that. You
to
can
it?
make your amendment after the
Sure.
next one.
Well, we can't add it to this one as a friendly
Why don't
one?
we keep the projects separate?
Okay, good. It's fine.
Anything further on the amendment for Wellington Street West? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving it forward? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Humphreys, would you like to make that amendment?
Or the item F7, Mitchell Park. Erosion 24 sites, it's large, and the flood damage centers too. I don't know what that means, but it's quite high. It's 7.8 million. But it is damaging homes every year, I would say. So.
Would anybody like to speak to the amendment to move that one forward? Ms. Mahale?
This is a very complex project. We would be happy to look at it sooner rather than later. Involves an underground storage to take the peak of the flooding, and this is the reason it's expensive.
May?
Just as a reminder, we're just asking to move it up into the 10-year horizon.
Yes.
We're not saying to move it to next year.
No, but between the 2 and 10, right, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor? The earliest, the first
Well, no,
batch.
The motion is just to move it to within that first catch of 2 to 10 years. We're not
Right.
asking them for them to do it next year.
No. I'm asking the first batch, the first priority areas, right? No, that's fine. I just wanted to mention that, and I appreciate Ms. Mahila's response, because this is truly a serious area. I think one of the top in town next to Tannery Creek, which is a different story there. But in this case, there's some quite a bit of damage here. And I think you may have heard probably the soccer clubs and teams that can't play for weeks on end when this happens. It happens very, very frequently. So I appreciate support on this as well if possible.
Councillor Gallo, speaking to the amendment.
Just a question to staff. Is the rationale why these two particular ones are not higher up on the list because of financial implications?
I think that's what Mr. Amos had alluded to, that in conversations with staff, they tried to make it a manageable plan, but I'll let Ms. Mahale expand on that.
Yes, it was primarily financial implications. First time the consultant recommendations came to us, it was an implementation within the 2 to 20 years, and with a total budget of 41 million. And it seems to be a very high number, and we asked the consultant to look to classify projects that can be done later with a horizon of 20 to 30 years. And that was the reason we put the implementation within a 30-year horizon period. However, if council decide to move up some projects, I would be very happy to deliver them earlier, within a horizon to 2 to 10 years.
Thank you, Ms. Mahale. Councillor Gallo?
The question is, if there was unlimited resources, would these two be at the top of the list, or maybe there's others that staff have analyzed that would go to the top of the list? I feel like we're ad hoc doing this. I realize it's going to go to budget anyway, but we've got a report in front of us. I assume that the most urgent ones are at the top of the list, really, regardless of money. We'll figure out how to do that, and if we don't, then we'll let them know the money just isn't there. Let's rearrange it. But I'm wondering if we're doing at this in an ad hoc way, that maybe there's other ones that are more important that should be at the top of the list, and we just haven't done that.
There's certainly time to take it offline and have further conversations with staff for our next council meeting. But as a reminder, this would come back in our 10-year capital plan. And at that time, there can be further discussions about whether or not it's in the appropriate year, or staff want to move, or individuals want to move certain things up based on their conversations with staff and based on needs. But right now, all we're really talking about is including it into our 10-year capital plan and having those conversations.
But in order for me to make that decision, I'd like to know whether staff took into account only the financial aspect or the severity of the issue to be addressed.
I agree with you 100%. I'm just saying that there's time to have those further conversations, either between now and council or between now and when the 10-year capital budget plan is presented to us. We can have those further conversations.
As long as we're going to get another report with that, which I don't think we are, I don't feel comfortable leaving it up to me to pick and choose which ones should be at the top of the list. I'm looking to staff to tell me these are the urgent ones and this is the price tag to them. Council, you decide which ones you want to do. If we're kind of picking and choosing based on our experiences, some that go to the top of the list, there may be others that are even more urgent, that are maybe cost more, but should be higher up. That's all I'm suggesting.
I agree with you. See nothing further to the amendment? All those in favor of moving it within the 10-year plan? Opposed? Motion carries. Back to the main motion as amended. Councillor Humphreys, you had the floor. Anything further? You're good? See nothing further. All those in favor of the motion as amended? Opposed? Carried. Council, it's now 9:15. We have to take our health break. Given that we still have some members in the audience, especially for the Hallmark, would we be okay with just taking 5 minutes? Great. If we can all be back, it's 9:15. If we can be back at 9:20, and we will deal with Hallmark right away. Councillors, if I can ask you to take your seats again, please. Mr. Downey, we're going to get started again. We're going to get started again. Councillors, will now resume. We will start off with item R2. If I can ask for somebody to put the staff recommendation on the floor. Councillor Gartner, is there a seconder for the staff recommendation? Councillor Gilliland. Speakers to the motion. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, given that council just received another, viable option for the Hallmark lands and, with respect to adding baseball capacity, and given that, if I'm totally misreading my council colleagues, but based on the previous council discussion, I don't think there is an appetite for a $3.9 million facility on the Hallmark land. So I just want to put in an amendment to have to this be referred back to staff for more information regarding an indoor baseball training facility on the Hallmark lands.
So you're asking for a motion to refer to staff?
Yes.
For further discussion with regarding to the dome?
Yes. I mean, right now we don't have any other options. We might as well take a good look and have staff study this option, get the financials, get all the details, and see if it is a viable option. If it's not, then council will make other plans.
Is there a seconder for the referral? Councillor Gilliland? Any debate on the referral? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of referring back to staff? Motion carried. So staff will reach out and have conversations and then bring forward a report. Moving on to R4. Development planning fees and charges update. Can I get a motion to put the staff recommendation on the floor? Mayor Maracas, Councillor Gartner. Any conversations or discussions on the report before us? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could I just ask what a deeming bylaw is?
Mr. Waters? Oh, Ms. Desario.
Through you, Mr. Chair. A deeming bylaw is when there's a plan of subdivision that has been registered for more than 7 years. The Planning Act allows you to deem it not to be a plan of subdivision.
Thank you. I tried to find that online. Thank you very much. On page 7, we're going to consult with the development industry. I'm expecting they'll ask for lower fees. So what do we do with those comments?
Mr. Waters.
We will take them under, through you, Mr. Chairman, we will take them under consideration and we will determine the validity of those comments and report back.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. And I guess at the end of the day, they'll just pass it on to their purchasers.
Mr. Waters.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, as you see through the report, our plan, we are not recovering our full.
No.
And for a number of years, even with the increases to the fees, we still are in the middle of the pack in terms of the 23 municipalities surveyed. So I think, to be quite fair, I think these, given the complexity of planning applications these days, they're very short timelines that have been imposed on municipalities by the province. I think it's more inappropriate that we look at a fair and equitable fee structure.
I absolutely agree. Thank you. On page 52, it's residential 4-1R, page 52. Aurora is still on the lower end. This has to do with residential subdivisions. Aurora is still on the lower end, and I'm looking at our closest equivalent municipalities, which would be Newmarket and East Gwillimbury. So we're still on the lower end. Is there a reason for that?
Just to clarify, are you talking about 4.1.2, the graph that is on page 52 of 68?
Yes.
Mr. Waters, do you need a second to find that page?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I believe those are existing planning fees that the municipality is charging now.
The way I read it, we're even when we change it, we're still going to be on the lower end. And it may be a question for next week. It's also, let's see, 4.2, page 53. We're also still on the lower end. We're lower than Newmarket or East Gwillimbury, and I'm just wondering why.
Perhaps you can sort of expand the answer, just talk about in general what you said about the goal in raising the fees and how that puts us in comparison to all of our neighbors. 'Cause I think Councillor Gardner's raised a fair point about in looking at many of the graphs, we seem to be at a lower end.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I will try to tackle that question. If you look at 4.1, I believe those are existing fees that are being charged now by the town. 4.2, which is the next page over, is what we're, that's related for town housing development. So those are fees that are currently being charged now. The purpose or objective of this exercise is to recover full cost recovery where possible, and we will be able to achieve that through these more traditional type of planning application fees. Where we're looking at not covering full cost recovery is through, say, committee of adjustment and the scope site plan process. We'll realize that those are targeted more towards residents than developers, builders.
Councillor Gardner?
I'll check which my comments during the next questioner. I think that as it says in the report, the overall increase is still pretty nominal. Some of course are huge increases, but the overall goes from 0.7 to 2.7. Aurora is going to maintain its relative position approximately in the middle of the pack. So I'm very, very happy that we have done this to date and that we're hopefully going to put this in place. And when would we be putting it in place?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we plan to consult with Build over the next 4 to 8 weeks. And we'll come back to you with that feedback in addition to an implementation strategy as well for you to consider. We hope to get that to you, I'm thinking May-ish. Maybe sooner if we can.
Councillor Gardner?
That'd be great, thanks.
Sorry, Councillor Gallagher, did you have any questions? No, good. Mayor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add something about the diagram. When you do dive into the numbers and you look at them, the one that kind of keeps us in the middle is the development charges. If you look at some of the other ones, when you look at official plan amendment, the proposed is 111,000 under table 4.2. That would leapfrog us over King, Mississauga, Newmarket, Brampton by about $20,000 to $30,000. The one that's kind of dropping us in the overall average is the development charge one, because if you look at us at 3,700,000, and then Vaughan number one is 5 million. So that's the one that's bringing our average down. So I just wanted to point that out. A lot of the other ones, we are at the proposed new rate is actually jumping us above a lot of the other municipalities in the area. So.
Thank you,
So
Mayor
it's the development charges is kind of separate from this one.
Councillor Gardner for the second time.
If I'm going back to, and maybe there can be a general explanation, if I'm going back to 4.2 on page 53, it looks to me the proposed fee, this is for development fee, residential subdivisions, 50 medium density. Even though we're proposing to increase our fees, we're still below East Gwillimbury and Newmarket. And I think that those are pretty good comparators for us. Some of these other places are just absolutely huge. So, especially with respect to Newmarket, why would we be lower than Newmarket?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is not an arbitrary exercise where we're sort of picking out numbers relative to other municipalities. There's a model approach that's based, and what's factored into is the number of staff that are involved in undertaking the work, and there's a time allocated to each staff member and a cost. So it's a very detailed model that will stand up if it's challenged, say, at the LPAT.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Mr. Waters, if, anytime you raise fees, there's always a concern what the impact would be. In your opinion, do you see the increases impacting the number of planning applications or anything like that going forward?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it's status quo at the moment until we bring this forward and we adopt the fee bylaw. And as part of that process, there's 2 or 3 different approaches we can take regarding how they're implemented. We can, split them according to the time of year. We can have a 6-month period whereby we advise the public that fees are changing. Or you could even take the approach where if a pre-con's been undertaken to date, that fee is locked in. So there's a number of different approaches we'll consider. We'll bounce that off the build people and see what their reaction is.
Certainly, and I certainly support the move towards cost recovery and the approach where you looked at, who's submitting those applications, be it residential or developers, and that sort of guided some of the cost decisions. So it's good on you. So any further conversation, discussions, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. R5. 14029 Yonge Street. Would somebody like to move the staff recommendation? Councillor Gilliland? Mayor Marakis? Any comments or questions? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. You probably liked when I was away.
No, we missed you.
Didn't show on the screen. I have a comment to Mr. Chair, to Mr. Waters. I made this comment quite a while ago when we're going through all of the plans and how this agrees with the plan. I had asked that when something is on the Oak Ridges Moraine, that it be included under that that heading of Oak Ridges Marine Conservation Plan. Now, it was included under our official plan, but I would appreciate if we would take the step of, thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries.
So I'm going to be voting against this again because of the reduced setback from the center line of Yonge Street, and also from because of the reduced minimum separation from the estate residential to the south. Both of these measures not only reduce the privacy, in my opinion, of the estate residential, but they also increase the resulting density, and I'm not going to be voting for that because it's on the marine.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any further questions? Councillor Gardner, for the second time.
Thank you. Under the department comments, this would be to Mr. Downey. Under the department comments, It says that there's going to be a variety of plantings, which I'm really pleased to know because of, well, we can see what happened with the emerald ash tree population. It's good to have a variety of plants. But are we referring to the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority has a list of trees that would weather well going into climate change? And I'm wondering if we could make use of that list or any current information from anybody so that we can ensure that whatever is being planted now will do well in the future.
Mr. Downey, welcome. We haven't heard from you in a while.
It's unusual too, isn't it? Through you, Mr. Chair. If I can be provided that list, is there someone at the Conservation Authority who might be able to provide that list to us? I don't recall seeing a list. The Conservation Authority does recommend certain tree plantings, but I didn't know they had a preferred list of plantings.
I'm not exactly sure if it's a list like that, but in their annual report, I think it was 2018, maybe?
Perhaps as our Lake Simcoe representative, you could follow up and see if there's a list.
I have been trying to talk about this, but it seems that we're not using all of the information that's coming from Lake Simcoe. So I will find out about that.
Perfect.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Waters, could you confirm where the developer's building is currently zoned for residential and not on designated Oak Ridge Moraine?
Mr. Waters.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it's important to note that the official plan amendment zoning bylaw were adopted by council back in 2018. The draft plan of subdivision was also approved in 2018, and there was also a servicing allocation. So the site is already zoned, and the uses are in force. What this site plan does is essentially implement the policies of the official plan amendment in terms of the density target, also in terms of the setback from the estate housing to the south. So it's all in conformity with the zoning bylaw.
Thank you. And I just want to make some clarification on it, because that's kind of what I had thought was being presented today. And I was actually impressed in how there's like a little rounded loop on the north side there where they've seemed to have incorporated more of a public space. Is that correct?
It is an endangered species. In addition to that, they are also planting, I believe, 6 more. I think there's 3 butternut trees on site, and there's 6 more to be planted within the protection area.
Councillor Gilliland.
Perfect. That's great news. I'm glad to hear that we're protecting that tree, and it's about time that we have some good news on tree protection, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mayor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in favor of this, as obviously we passed this already in 2018, as we talked about, and we're just dealing with the site plan right now. I just did want to give a little bit of history. I think Councillor Gartner voted against this back then, so I fully expect her to continue to vote against this. So I just wanted to throw that back in there, so everyone understands where Councillor Gartner is coming from, that she did vote against the original application. So,
seeing no further discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Last up, the appointment for the Community Advisory Committee. Can I get a mover on the recommendation? Councillor Gallo, Mayor Maracas. Any discussion? Seeing none. Councillor Gilliland.
I just want to say, in a couple minutes, welcome back.
Anything further? No. All those in favor? Carried. Council, that brings us to an end of our regular discussion items. Take note that there are 2 notices of motions to be discussed on the 28th, both by Councillor Kim, and we are on to new business. And remember, we only have 1 council meeting now on the 28th. We're into the new schedule. New business, may I start with you, Councillor Gilliland. Nothing? Councillor Humphreys.
Mr. Chair, I have two, knowing that we don't have, but the first one is if we could put a motion forward this evening to help Trevor Hall and Krista Hall on number 94 Connaught Avenue to have an exemption from the interim control bylaw. I'd like to grant them that if they could, so they can move forward to moving forward with their minor variances.
Councillor Humphreys, are you asking for the exemption right now, or are you asking just for staff to come back with a report regarding that
Yes.
exemption?
Yes, exactly. Yes, to allow them for that, yes.
Yes, the exemption?
No, for staff to come back and allow them for the exemption.
So you're asking staff to come back and report
Yes.
on the request for exemption?
Yes.
Thank you. Which I will say to council, we have done in the past.
We've done that.
So that's fine? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, seconder, sorry. Yes, thank you. Mayor Maracus, you seconded it? All in favor? So moved. Your second one.
Thank you so much. Very quickly, I was asked by, if that's okay, by the Legion, this isn't new business. This is more of a personal, is that okay?
Yes.
If that's all right.
You're halfway down.
All right, so the Legion has wanted us to share with the public and everyone that they have a new progressive lottery called Catch the Ace, and is looking for support. Tickets are on sale every week, and they're for $5 and are currently only sold at the Legion. They're looking for some partners, though, to sell local locations. The address, of course, is 105 Industrial Parkway North, and the tickets can be purchased between 11 and 10, Monday to Friday, and Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. There's a winner every week until the Ace of Spades is found. Now, the proceeds go to the Legion for Raise the Roof, the Aurora Food Pantry, and Welcoming Arms. So it's a great initiative to help them raise some money, and the award for finding the aces can be pretty high.
Since it's a new initiative, it qualifies for new business.
Perfect. Thank you so
Councillor
much.
Kim? Councillor Gardner.
Yes, first of all, I would like to say that I missed the last 3 weeks of meetings due to a serious family illness, and my apology to the public and to council. Also, we've had an email from a participant in the Intercultural Festival, and it's a new business, and they're out money, and I'm wondering if there's anything that council can do to help this person. Okay.
Mr. Nadarosny, are you aware of this email?
To Mr. Chair, I'm aware of some concerns expressed by some people who were involved in that event. Those were as a result of agreements between the individual vendors and the organizer. And so we're not directly party to those arrangements. So while we're aware of them, we don't really have any authority to intervene, let's put it that way, I guess.
Could we be in contact with the organizer on the, because it was held on our property with our blessing
Mr. Nadarosny.
and our money.
Through Mr. Chair, to date, we've relayed any of those concerns back to the organizer of the event, and that's as far as we've taken them.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Have we heard back from them? I mean, I know that it's not our jurisdiction, but it's not good for our reputation to have this happening with, an event in our town park. So if there's anything else that could be done, I would really appreciate it.
Well, Mr. Nadarosny, can you take that under advisement and see if there's anything further that can be done?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, I can take it under advisement, but I can tell you that there isn't much we can do without some formal direction. Most of these arrangements were unfortunately verbal in nature, and sort of handshake deals is what I can seem to get from the stories that we've heard, and so it would be difficult outside of the town directly compensating somebody, which it would be a nightmare in itself. I'm not quite sure how we would further inject ourselves in that situation.
could we go so far as to express our disappointment on behalf of the council or the town, or it's already been done?
Mr. Natarosny.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd be reluctant to put in writing my disappointment without, a thorough knowledge of the facts and sort of becoming a judge and jury on these things. So it's not really appropriate for us.
Okay. So I'm also want to speak about the huge shame, well, it's just a terrible thing that we're going to lose 23 mature trees at 304 Kennedy Street West. So, Mr. Mayor, I just want to ask you if you might be able to speak to the developer and convince them to plant something that's at least more substantial than the usual saplings. You have so much influence, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
I didn't realize I had that much influence, but I have no problem reaching out, and obviously, you, Councillor, from our time last term, I'm very big on when we look at reforestation to make sure and ensure that it's not saplings, that we look at any possible way that we can always put some more mature trees and replace those and put those back in, because it's an important thing for our town. So definitely, I will do my best to reach out and make sure that is known by whoever's looking at developing that property.
Cost very much more money, but it could make a huge difference. Not only it's an environmental issue, but also to the streetscape, and the residents in that area would be very appreciative, I'm sure.
Anything further, Councillor Carter?
So I'm going to sneak in, as Councillor Humphreys did.
Public service announcement?
These are both time sensitive. One is the mayor and council's levy on the 25th, January 25th. It's at the SARC, and it's from 2 to 8, and there's going to be lots of fun. There's going to be swimming and skating, and you can come. And that's right, a free Tigers game, and you can come out and tell all of us your problems. And the other thing is Chats is having their 6th Scotch tasting event, and that's January 30th.
Great.
So those are both coming up pretty soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have one, and it's not necessarily new business, but I think on behalf of the town of Aurora, I wanted us to extend our condolences to the Premier, Doug Ford, and his family for the passing of their beloved mother and grandmother, Diane Ford.
Thank you, Mayor Maracas, and I understand that you've had a chance to speak with the Premier on that matter. Councillor Callow.
Thank you. And just a reminder on the Multicultural Fest. Is a report supposed to come back? I thought I remembered that we were going to be getting something.
Mr. Natarosny?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't believe a formal report, but we did agree that we would report to council on the financials as we saw them, and I believe I sent an email in December to all of council with an outline. Again, we're not directly accountable in terms of the total project, so we did try to allocate where the council's funds were directed towards, and we also listed other expenses that we knew they incurred.
Okay, I thought there was going to be a public report so the public can see where the funds were distributed. We may
Perhaps
want
I can ask if Councillor Kim had plans to bring anything further on that, since it was his initiative.
Mr. Nadrasny's report to us, to council.
Yep.
We should take a really closer look next time we do those types of things. Just an update on pending list. If is it in the horizon, including closed session pending?
Mr. Natarosny?
I will get an update to council before the next meeting in terms of a timeline. We're in the process of dusting it off again. I had older version, as I reported the last time, that was, I confess, was stuck on my desk. And right after that meeting, I was informed by staff that they wanted to take another look at it because I guess I held it long enough that I stale dated it again. So it's being refreshed, and I will get a commitment to council to bring it to council.
As you can see, I'm very eager to take a look at it. Thank you.
Council, we have no additional closed session items, so may I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Kim, all those in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.